In this lesson, we will learn how to add an audio file to a web page. In front of you is a simple example page that we've used in previous lessons in the course, and you can see that for this lesson, we've added a subheading of music and then a paragraph that reads, "I play the ukulele," and have included a sample recording on this page. So our goal for this lesson is to include an audio file right below this text that will play a clip of the ukulele. On my desktop, I have an audio file named ukulele.mp3. So our goal is to write the necessary code to include that file in our web page. Let's begin by adding a bit of code underneath this paragraph. The code to include audio is very intuitive. It's simply audio. Next, within this audio element, we'll create another element named source. And we'll give this element an attribute of src for source, and then we have to include a string that tells the web browser where to point to locate the file. So let's make sure that we have that audio file in the correct directory. I'm going to move the ukulele.mp3 file into the same folder as our HTML file. Now within this directory, I'll create a folder named audio. Now let's move the ukulele.mp3 file into the audio folder. So in our HTML code, for source, we'll say audio /. So this will look inside the audio folder, and then we simply type the name of the file. So it's ukulele.mp3. We need to include another attribute for this source element, and its name is type. This is where we let the web browser know what type of file this is. So our value is simply audio/mpeg. Finally, let's add an attribute name of controls to this parent audio element to make sure that all browsers add controls like pause and play and volume. Now if we click save and then reload our web browser, we can see that here is an audio player. If I click the play button, we can hear an ukulele playing. Now in some ways we've completed our goal. We've added an audio clip to a web page. However, this may work in the most recent version of Mozilla Firefox, the web browser that I'm using, but we need to make sure that this works across all browsers and devices. So there's a few extra steps we need to take. Most modern web browsers and devices can play .mp3 files. However, certain browsers and devices require a .ogg file, .ogg. On my desktop, I have an ukulele.ogg file. Now this is the same exact audio clip as the MP3 file, it's simply been saved in a different format. So let's go ahead and move this file into the audio folder to sit next to the ukulele.mp3 file. Now, in our HTML, we'll create another source element. And for the src attribute, we'll say, look inside the audio folder, and then pull in the ukulele.ogg file. And the type attribute for this will have a value of audio/ogg. This means that our audio element now has two source elements, and web browsers will know to choose the one that they support. So if they support MP3 files, it'll grab this one. And if the browser supports OGG playback, it'll use this source. So we have all of our bases covered for modern web browsers and devices. But let's include a bit of extra code to make sure that even old or outdated web browsers can still hear our audio file. Even though older web browsers don't support the audio element, they do support fallback content, which means we can include content within the audio element, and if a web browser is too old to be able to load one of these files at all, it will still display our fallback content. So we can begin typing that fallback content. I'm going to create a link. We remember that the code to create a link or an anchor is simply A. Now the text that we want users to click on is ukulele audio recording. Now on this element, we want to give it an attribute of href, and this is where we point to the file, audio, and we'll use the MP3 file because it's the most common format, ukulele.mp3. So with this code in place, newer web browsers will still see a player that they can click on. However, let's pretend that I was using an outdated web browser. I would see simply this link, this fallback content. So it would look like this. Users would still see a link that they can click on, which plays the audio file. This means that even though older web browsers may not be able to play the file natively on our web page, if we simply create a hyperlink to the MP3 file, then most browsers, no matter how old they are, should be able to play or load the clip in one way or another. So to review, to include an audio file on a web page, we use the audio element. For newer browsers, we can include different source elements that point towards our file, and they will include a native player directly on the page. For older web browsers, we can include a fallback that simply links to the file. In our next lesson, we will learn how to add a video file to a web page.